I'm Tony Ruiz, contributing editor of Gold Derby, here with Jeremy Pope, who stars um, in a beautiful performance in The Inspection. And yeah, Jeremy, one of the things that I was thinking about, particularly as I was watching the film, was, here you are, really the lead in this film, and it's based on a true story, and the true story that's based on the guy at the center of it is also your director.
Right.
So I'm wondering, in those with those, those are individual challenges. Was there any one of those that was the most kind of daunting in the process?
I think it was less daunting. I think early on we had a conversation and I said to Elegance, I said, in order for this to work and to be successful, is you have to trust me. We're shooting this movie in 19 days in Mississippi in 117-degree weather. We're going to be thinking very fast. You know what I mean? And there's a lot to be done. And when you're making movies, at least my goal is story first, story first. And yes, the sun is going down, but story first. And we got to make sure that we have those, the story is there and that, we can honor kind of the sacrifice of him giving his truth in this way. So he trusts me, he trusted me. And I think that was the way that we made it work because, this is his first film. So he's also, learning a lot as we go through and healing a lot because these things that are being said to my character are things that was said to him and his experiences that he had. And this film was kind of another attempt, without ruining anything, was another attempt for him to reach out to his mother. And his mom did pass a few days shortly after the movie was greenlit. So it was a very sensitive piece. I knew that I would have to create a lot of emotional bandwidth to be there for him to unpack and find. I didn't realize how physically demanding the role would also require me to be. So just those challenges in parallel together at the same time were made some days tougher than others.
Well, it's interesting because of the, you talk about the physical, both the physical and the emotional challenges. Actors I've spoken to have different approaches to those. Does one of those or is one of those easier than the others? Do you approach them differently?
Yeah. I wish one of them was easier than the other. It's like you think where you're like, oh, this scene, it's you think one scene is going to go a certain way, and then it requires you to do more than you prepared for, and it's all just, at least for me, pretty exhausting. Again, I want to emphasize being in Mississippi in the middle of the summer during a pandemic. Like those elements, it helped the performance. It felt, it's not cliche, real, because it was real. I was very hot and I was struggling to stand and to stay, in line and in formation. Jeremy Pope, the actor French, the character French, like all of the things. But I think in those moments that feel really tough and sometimes impossible, when you're centered in a story that, I know and I believe is going to be so impactful, and I know is going to become a resource that changes someone's life on the opposites, on the other side. That's what I try to remember. I was able to look across the room and look at how a scene or a moment was affecting Elegance, how happy he was, that his trauma and his pain equaled this moment, that he was okay, that he is worthy. He's always been worthy, that he is lovable, that he can be a director and a writer, and here we are, A24 backing us, Game Changer Films, making this film happen in Mississippi, people supporting his story and his truth. And affirmative for me as a Black queer artist, that there are going to be opportunities and that I won't be limited to doing one thing and only being able to do one thing well, because that is the fear I think with a lot of queer artists and coming out. You're just like, I don't want to limit my opportunities. I don't want to limit my ability to be stable and to be financially stable as a creative, as an artist. It's hard enough as it is to have health insurance, like real talk. So to be in a project that is caring and centering Black men and taking care of, and yes, painful and hard, but truth, and ultimately a happy ending, an ending that ends in, French realizing his worth. And
Yeah, that to me was so moving, and I couldn't help but think, as a Black queer man, yeah, that pressure might be there, and I'm wondering how conscious you were of it in terms of what this role might mean. in terms of what it meant to Elegance, when I spoke to him about it, how important it was to have, you know, an openly queer man at the center of it. Did that did that add a sense of pressure to you to do it justice?
I don't think so for me because most of my career I've been challenging masculinity. I've been challenging Black. I've definitely challenged queer. So I'm used to that uncomfortable feeling of being vulnerable and putting myself first. And when I say first, putting my truth first on the line in hopes that there will be a yes and amen behind me, that people will go, oh, I see myself through you or through the way that you attached yourself to an Archie in Hollywood or to, you know, a French in The Inspection or to a Ferris in The Choir Boy on Broadway. So like I've had roles that have given me the opportunity to participate in that experiment of giving yourself away, you know, at the expense of the character, at the expense of healing on the other side, in the art form. So I didn't think about that until he kind of brought it to my attention and saying, you know, I was always his first choice for this role, because of that reason, because I am and have always been an out, comfortable Black artist, and what that would mean, what that would have meant to him, seeing that representation. And I think about it for myself. I didn't grow up seeing Black gay movie stars. That wasn't something I think I could aspire to be or something that would be tangible. But being Black felt hard enough, you know, like if I have space, am I the token? Am I the best friend? Am I in the ensemble? Like, but here I am able to take all the space and speak from a place of truth. And that truth can be ugly and painful, but there is so much love in honoring that truth and understanding that truth and bringing people closer to what you know and what it is. So I thought, what a gift, and working, you know, with a director, a writer, a collaborator, where I don't have to over explain what it means to be a Black man in this space. And oh, well, the Black guy wouldn't say this, he would do this. Like he knows. We don't have to explain. We can just be, and we can just, you know, do the like excavation of what's not on the page. What is a feeling that you can capture? What is the perspective of someone who's in an institution surrounded by hyper masculinity? What does that look like? Like, don't tell me what that is. It's like I can show you what that feels like. And I think the power of cinema, you can really, you know, have great close-ups and great like, you know, language with your cinema, you know, cinematography of explaining and exploring the emotionality of a character. And I think that's what, Lachlan, our DP, and Elegance did really beautiful with The Inspection.
And yet, to me, the film would not work as much as it did, and if it didn't also feel like such a tight knit ensemble piece, because in order for the audience to really latch on to Ellis finding his place, right, there also has to be this believability of the bonds and the trauma that happens in a boot camp situation. So with each of those other actors, in terms of how did you guys work on building that in such a short amount of time?
Right. It was such a short amount of time. Two things that come to my mind. This job, I think for me, and we've talked all together as the boys, I'll say, and even Gab, it was a job of service. You're making an indie film, so you're like, this film, you have to find your why in the story. Because with indie films, you hope that it does amazing things and it's the one film that changes the game, but you have to love it and you have to care about the bones and the heart of it. So all of us were there to protect and be there of service for Elegance and to make this moment a reality and hopefully imbued with love and compassion and understanding. The second thing is the guys, while we had the few days to film the movie, we did boot camp. I remember one day I got an email and it said, your call time is 3:30 a.m. And I was like, well, what the hell am I going to be doing at 3:30 a.m.? Why is that call time so early? It was because we were getting up to go to this kind of a police academy that was doing a very similar boot camp to the Marines and gonna watch and experience and do the boot camp. And my joke would always be, I'm an actor. Like I want to act like I'm in boot camp, not be in boot camp for real. But I think us kind of going through that journey as a cast helped build the foundation of the platoon. Having to shave our heads, that experience is very, surprisingly vulnerable because you kind of shave off the version of who you've created yourself to be and kind of this attachment of like, no, I like my hair this way or that way. And you're stripped down to just nothing, you know, in this moment. So I think having those experiences all together, doing the boot camp, working on our ditties and, you know, our marches together, wanting to look best for camera, but as a platoon, it helped build the bond. And I just have to shout out my cast, because while this film, you know, specific to French is a lot of, you know, him being kind of put down and, you know, let down, they were nothing but support and nothing but ears and arms and love and squeezes in between takes to just remind me that while, you know, technically we're doing this story that's hard, but emotionally they were there with me, and protecting me and cared for me and wanted me and Elegance to kind of be able to give the best performances we could give when this is a highlight. This is a moment for Black and queer. This is, you know, so they were like, lean into that, and our job is to be allies and to support that fully. And I felt that from A24 to Game Changers to my cast to Gabrielle Union. Again, 19 days, you know what I mean, which feels impossible and felt impossible at the top when I'm reading the script and going, there's so much to do here. But somehow we made it on the other side, you know, and now we can kind of celebrate this moment and share this film with the world.
And I want to talk about Gabrielle in just a second, but I feel like, you know, you've got these two sides of the drill sergeant coin,
Mm-hmm.
with Bokeem Woodbine and Raul Castillo. How did they fit into the whole kind of dynamic there?
Yeah, well, we all were staying at the same hotel in Mississippi, and they off screen did not talk to us. It was very strange. They like very much created kind of, you know, the relationship, which I guess is true in boot camp. You don't talk to your sergeants. You know, if you see them out smoking a cigarette or eating a sandwich, you, hi sir, you know, like you very much keep your distance. So that helped create, you know, this kind of unknown tension, because I didn't really know too much about Bokeem outside of the brilliant work I've seen him in. But personally, it wasn't like he was a homie yet. That happened towards the end when we kind of go, okay, we're a couple, you know, now we can have fun and embrace each other. But the beginning was definitely kind of this unclear idea of, does he hate me? Does he know me? Does he like me? Like just trying to understand where he stood, where Raul and our other drill sergeant Nick stood. And a lot of the things they were saying were improv. I could see Elegance kind of talking to them and then being like, you know, kind of lay it on them. And in the scene, they might tell you to drop down and give them push-ups, and you're not gonna not do it. So it was just kind of like always being on your P's and Q's for like, what the hell is about to happen to me? Again, my joke, I'm an actor, so I'm trying to act like boot camp, not really be in boot camp. Um,
Please don't actually drown me.
yeah, like please don't. Yeah, you know what I mean? But you know, they were nothing but love. Again, just affirmed in that job being of service and the story resonating with them in whatever specific ways as to why they say, I want to be a part of this. I want to go and make this, you know, this movie with you all. And it, you know, it was nothing but love and respect and for the story and the craft.
And I Gabrielle Union, I mean, my God, the it feels like, you know, bookends of just heartbreak in those scenes. And I'm curious as to how much conversation you two had going into those scenes, because that's tough, you know, as a gay man to hear, to imagine those words being said by my own mother.
Right.
I'm curious as to how you all navigated those really tricky scenes.
Right. They were tough. They were tough days. They were very emotional days. For Elegance, for myself, for Gab. I think, you know, shout out to Gab. Gab does the work in the streets in real life, off camera, as far as protecting her children. And, you know, and sometimes that means Twitter fingers, sometimes that means just representation in a room, both her and her husband. So, you know, she was a big producer on this film. She's a big reason as to how, you know, it getting made. But the work that she did and the attention to detail and to honoring his mother and the complex relationship that they had, it's like an elastic band. It's like this thing that's being pulled so far and it's supposed to snap. But there's such tension and there's such a longing. And that was a lot of the conversation we had is, yes, we see what's on the page. Yes, we feel and we can read the cruelty and the, you know, the words, but the language, but like what's happening underneath? Because it's almost an opposition of what you're saying. It's like you don't mean what you say because of how close you are to me, how you touch me, how you feel. Like we understood there was going to be so much power in that language. And ultimately, that character has to be French's North Star from the beginning of the film. We have to understand how much she means to him and how he's willing to do this thing, to go into the service, to to reach out and to at an attempt to win her love and to win her affection. In that process, he finds self-love and self-worth and all of that. And the journey kind of shifts a bit. But like you said, it's this bookend of these two scenes that are just complex. This love that wants to be there, but is conditional. I can love you fully and wholly, but only in this way. And what French realizes, that way doesn't serve who I am. So when you're ready to love me for who I am and what I am and how I am, there'll be space. You know what I mean? And I think that is such a beautiful, complex realization, revelation that he experiences, as tough and as emotional as that is, but I think speaks to elegance and his truth. Didn't speak to his mom for, I think, almost 15, 18 years before she passed away. So yes, the scenes where we go into, this his childhood home where they've recreated the set to look like exactly how it looked, but then they've embedded baby photos of me and kind of me pulling from my own fears of being abandoned and the complex relationships I've had with family by identifying as gay, and it brought up all of those things. So we held each other to, in the space, and on the other side of it, as hard as it was to film those moments and to make it happen, I felt lighter. He felt lighter. We knew that we were going to be okay, and we got to leave some of those traumatic moments and pain in that room and in that scene. If I put it all there, then it will live there forever, and I don't have to visit it as much. I don't have to carry it alone. You know?
I find that so fascinating because I feel like in many ways this film is so timely for the time that we as the queer community are living in right now, where there are these repeated attempts to marginalize us, to say you can have a spot, but it has to be just this spot. Do you think I feel like the Ellis finding his place in boot camp is such a great metaphor for that, for the struggle that we're seeing in the community right now.
Right, right. I think I'll say Ellis, but Elegance talks about just kind of people ask why is this film important, what all of those things, and it just is important because representation and seeing, believing is everything, and we don't center Black men enough. We don't center Black queer men enough. So that is enough. But important is just what we're seeing right now is we're living in a world that is so left versus right, white, versus Black, women versus men. And I think one thing that Elegance talks about is when he joined the Marines, it gave his life purpose and meaning. His duty was to protect the man to the left and to the right, regardless of your differences. When you're on the battlefield or wherever you are, we got to figure it out to be able to save each other and protect each other. And I think just kind of having that idea and putting that on life and how we all may walk our different walks and experience what we experience. But if we can try to find that common ground, that empathetic way of understanding and hearing each other and learning from one another and holding each other accountable and loving each other when we fall short and being loved when you fall short, like all of that, making space for the complexity of the human experience, the common ground and the love we might experience together in harmony. So I think the film speaks to that. You know what I mean? It isn't a film about Ellis going to boot camp and now he can do 10 push-ups instead of 5. Like it's not that story. It's not this makeover story of now he's a man. He was always a man. He was always worthy. He always had the tools and he was enough. He just had been denied by institutions and by people who couldn't love him and see him fully. But when he got in a space of not denying himself and forcing people to go see me, recognize me, love me, embrace me. I'm here to protect you. I'm here to do this. I find common ground with you so you can do the same with me. That's when his world starts to open up and the possibilities seem limitless. And again, I will always use Elegance as the reference. Like this is a movie that encapsulates a specific point in his life. But here he is having his feature film debut backed by Game Changers and A24. So happy and so proud. And I'm like, wow, that speaks to there is a way out. It's going to be okay. You can be the hero of your own story when you take back the narrative of you not being enough, or you being unlovable, or whatever the case is, or all the things that have been told to you that are a lie. I've had my own struggles with that. And the more I've been able to affirm myself in my truth, that's when life starts to life and the beautiful things start to happen. And people will watch my career start to do this thing and they go, what's happening? And I'm like, I just started loving myself. I started being in rooms with creatives and people that wanted to love and champion the evolved version of who I was when I was in that moment. And that goes from a Terrell McCraney off Broadway before an Oscar nom and an Oscar win, to a Dominique Morisseau, to a Janet Mock, to an Elegance Bratton. Like, these people changed my life and healed me in ways that are unimaginable.
And we're all the better for it. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the upcoming award season, and stay tuned for interviews with more contenders in the coming months. Jeremy Pope, congratulations, beautiful performance. Thank you so much.
Thank you.